I was vacationing alone in Savannah when I saw ads around the historic district for a guided ghost tour. Figuring it would be kitschy fun, I signed up and arrived that evening along with a dozen other tourists to gawk at supposedly haunted mansions and graveyards. Our guide, Freddy, was a character straight out of a horror movie, lanky guy in his 60s with wild eyes and a creeping drawl. As we traversed the lamplit streets, he regaled us with chilling tales of tragedy, murder and ghosts lingering among Savannah's sprawling southern cemeteries and homes. I chuckled along with the rest of the group as Freddy gestured theatrically at each haunted spot. But an uneasy tingle crept up my neck when we reached the ancient Bonaventure Cemetery as dusk fell. Spanish moss hung eerily from twisted oaks as Freddy described vengeful specters said to wander the graves. One woman among us suddenly let out a frightened yelp, pointing at a nearby crypt window. Something was looking back at me from inside. The rest of us peered closer but saw only cobwebs and shadows. She shook her head adamantly. I know what I saw. Freddy seemed unperturbed, making a lame joke about active imaginations. But as we continued through the rows of weathered headstones, the woman grew more agitated. She leaped aside with a shriek, swatting the air around her. Get away from me. Now even Freddy seemed concerned. He gently guided the frantic tourist back toward the exit, urging her to calm down. She kept glancing anxiously behind us, seeing horrors none of the rest of us did. The mood grew solemn after that eerie encounter. But Freddy maintained his theatrical facade. Our final stop was an abandoned hospital rumored to be haunted by the souls of those who died horrific deaths there. He regaled us with disturbing tales of botched surgeries, crazed serial killers, and tortured children from the hospital's past. Again, I got chills, especially once inside the decaying wards. Some evil deeds had undoubtedly occurred here, feeding restless spirits. At the finale of Freddy's performance, the lights unexpectedly cut out, cloaking us in pitch black. Nervous giggles turned to shrieks as ghostly moans reverberated through the building. I whipped my flashlight about but saw nothing besides alarmed tourists hugging each other. The backup lights kicked on, revealing Freddy cackling. Gets them every time. Don't worry, folks, just special effects playing on that deep human instinct to fear the dark. No real ghosts here, except yours truly. His attempt at humor did little to ease the dread now pervading the group. This prank had turned invasive. Filing out, we thanked Freddy tersely before parting ways into the night. But I couldn't shake a lingering unease. Something felt stirred up by that show. As I walked down the lamplit streets toward my B&B, I peered carefully at each flickering shadow, ready to run. Exhausted, I locked the old cast-iron door of my room behind me and prepped for a hot bath. But as I lay back in the steamy water, the shards of the bathroom's broken mirror seemed to shift and contort subtly. Heart racing, I rushed through my routine and dove into bed. Sleep did not come easy. The next day, I decided to stop by the ghost tour office and mention my concerns to Freddy. But an elderly woman stood in his place. Oh, poor Freddy hasn't been himself since last night, she'd said. Got the notion a dark spirit was tailing him home from the hospital. Hasn't left his house since. I felt a cold dread seep into my bones hearing this. Perhaps the ghost show had unearthed something malevolent after all. Over lunch, my waitress whispered that several tourists seemed to have had bad reactions since going on the tour. One swearing a snarling demon peeked through his window at night. Another suddenly racked by violent convulsions in the street, ranting about invisible tormentors all around. It seemed irrational, yet so did the growing disquiet in my own mind. The old city felt subtly altered, taking on a creeping menace. Noises and movement detected from the corner of my eye put me constantly on edge. Chills crawled up my spine strolling down now empty paved streets that twisted confusingly, as if the layout of the very town had shifted. By dusk, I joined the sparse groups hurrying home to shelter, darting glances over our shoulders. A grim instinct told me doors would not keep out the unnamed horror seeping up through cracks in reality after Freddy's tour had jostled things awake that should have slumbered. Once back in my room, I piled furniture against the entrance, unnerved by clawing branches from a tree just outside the window whose gnarled shape had surely taken a more twisted mien since I last saw it in daylight. No amount of prayer or meditation could dispel the nightmarish slide into madness this place was collectively experiencing. When my barricade began shaking violently well past midnight, I at first clenched my eyes shut, believing the assault was only happening in my shattered mind. But the pounding and inhuman shrieks could not be ignored. This was very real. Leaping from bed, I spotted jets of blood spewing up through the floorboards as splintered wood erupted upward. A deep, unholy bellow echoed from the yawning portal as a hulking horned form heaved itself into the bedroom, black eyes fixated upon me hungrily. Scrambling away just as it swiped a massive claw, I vaulted through the small window into the gnarled tree, tumbling down its branches as demonic roars pursued. Pitching forward into the deserted street, I became aware of shining figures floating about the lamp posts flickering wildly in darkness. With dread, I recognized the ghost tour group's panicked faces in the glowing specters. Incorporeal hands reached out in warning as they moaned in despair. We were all trapped in the same merciless nightmare. The abandoned buildings and storefronts around me swayed as if reality itself was buckling. My flight through the mist-shrouded town was disorienting, but I had to keep moving or be subsumed into the chaos. Just ahead, I spotted the creaking iron gate of the Bonaventure Cemetery. Some primal refuge instinct drew me toward its crumbling crypts. Slipping between the rusted bars, I paused to look back and glimpsed the horned bulk shouldering through distant alleys, bellowing fury at losing its prey. I ducked behind a mausoleum, burrowing into a pile of moist leaves and gnarled roots as the beast crashed past toward the town, drawn by fresher souls than mine. I huddled there in the forgotten tombs until sunrise banished the warped darkness. When I finally staggered onto the main streets again, Savannah appeared unchanged, with locals starting their daily bustle. RBAC. I rushed to the ghost tour office to warn them, but regular staff had returned, bewildered by my frantic ravings. The police escorted me firmly from attractions I claimed had been warped into nightmarish versions just last night. No reports of demons marauding or spirits accosting tourists. Just another visitor thrown into delusions. But I know what swallowed us all briefly in its thrall. And beneath Savannah's genteel veneer, remnants of that chaos still lurk for those attuned to its occult frequency. In the cobwebbed windows and rustling branches after dusk, darkness waits to bleed through the fragile veil again. That close brush with madness will haunt me in foggy moments between sleep and waking. But I came to understand those apparitions were not the cause, but victims like me. What burst through into the unwary town was an ancient force stirring from a long slumber, called by mortal thirsts for manufactured frights. But true terror requires no theatrics. Only an unlocked door. Keep shut the portals to darkness, and it has no dominion. But when we pried open the gates and ventured blindly in, we found ourselves at the non-existent mercy of the ravenous evil we awakened. For it lurks always just one breath away, ready to consume the psyche that courted its boundless depths. So take great care when you thrill-seek without wisdom. Ours is a fear that holds the destroyer at bay, not a key tempting the nightmare's return. Lay not breadcrumb trails into your own fragile psyche's untamed wilderness. For once invited through the cracks of sanity, the demons of madness unleash virulent chaos not easily undone. Balance is restored reluctantly by the infernal domain. And warding ritual serves best when unpracticed. So let mystery be, and wander not where good does not follow. For each must bear the harvest of their planting beyond sight of aid. I have learned this truth at cost no weaker soul could bear. And share now in hope no other might furnish the fallow field where the worst secretly thrives. For all our frail light holds back, eternal hunger waits famished.